start. We are currently on chapter 7. I think we are in part 2 because it was like divided by parts as well. So yes, chapter 7, part 2. That is what we're reading. Here we go. Now, reminder, if you don't remember what's happening, there's a huge pine cone shaped island that's floating in the air. It's attacking Black Marsh. Two Argonians called Aneg and Glim have gotten onto this island somehow. We know how, but I don't remember specifically. But they got on it, and they're basically trying to stop its campaign of killing people below. We also have a guy called Prince Atrobus who Aneg has contacted to basically help them. And we've also got a guy called Colin who's kind of an assassin something. Yes. We haven't seen him that much. It's mainly been Aneg and Glim till now. But yes, let us continue with chapter 7. Colin curbed the impulse to pace, but although he had walked into the room of his own free will, and there was no evidence that he could leave it, he felt caged somehow. But his mind had been spinning for 2 days now, and how do I do it where it can see my eyes? Yeah, it's just like looking at the screen, yes. But his mind had been spinning for 2 days now, and the threat it turned out was beginning to look more like a garret. The vanishment of Prince Atrobus wasn't his first case, it was his third. The first had been simple enough. He'd planted spurious intelligence in the Minister of War's office and waited for it to come out somewhere. When one of their agents in the local Thalmor nest reported it, he easily backtracked the lacked a mid-level official who was apparently hemorrhaging the information to a mistress who was, as it turned out, a Thalmor sympathizer. It was simple, clean, no arrests and no bodies. Once the leak was known, it was more useful to leave it in place. His second assignment had been to discover the whereabouts of a certain sorcerer named Laeva Quantus. He'd found her without ever knowing why he was looking for her. He didn't know what happened to her after he reported her location, and he didn't want to know. When he'd been sent out with the patrol to locate Prince Atrobus, it hadn't seemed that odd. Apparently, the prince often had to be shadowed, and it didn't require a particularly senior member of the organization to do the job of what amounted to a bit of tracking, questioning, and bribing. But now he was in the middle of something pretty bad, and a sensation between his sternum and his pelvis told him that it hadn't been an accident, that such a junior inspector had been sent to discover such nasty business. He didn't have any proof of that, of course, just that feeling and the certainty that he was missing some piece of the puzzle. And now he was in a well-furnished room on the second floor of the ministry, which was apparently the office of no one. He turned as Intendant Morrill entered the room, followed by 2 other men. One was Remar Vel, administrator of the Penitus Oculatus. The other, "Your Majesty," he blurted, taking a knee. He felt suddenly in awe, an emotion he hadn't experienced in a while. As a child, he'd worshipped this man. Apparently some part of him still did. "Rise up," the Emperor said. "Yes, Highness." The Emperor just stood there for a moment, hands clasped behind his back. "You were there," he finally said. "Is my son dead?" Colin considered his answer for a moment. If anyone else had asked him, but this wasn't anyone else. "Sire," he said, "I do not believe so." Titus Mead's eyes widened slightly, and his brow relaxed. But that was his only reaction. And yet his body was recovered, Administrator Vel said dryly. A body, sir, Colin said. A headless body. It's said that the rebels in that area take heads, the Emperor said. Other heads were taken. I don't believe the natives were responsible, Majesty. Why not? They're vicious enough, and we have information, do we not, that they are supplied and funded by our quiet enemies? You mean the Thalmor, Majesty? They are in everything these days, and yet I don't see how killing your son advances their aims. Who are you to say what their aims are? Vil snapped. You've only been an inspector for a month. Yes, sir, that's true. But my training focus was the Thalmor, which does not include by any means everything we know about them. Their aims are obscure. I respectfully disagree, sir. I may well not be privy to many details, but their goal is clear. The pacification and purification of all of Tamriel, to bring about a new Merithic era. We have an inkling of their long-term goals, Inspector, but their intermediate plans are less scrutable. Begging your pardon, sir, but not always. When they took Valenwood, that was pretty straightforward and quite logical. They put the old Aldmeri Dominion back together, which makes perfect sense in terms of their ideology. Their harassment of refugees from the Somerset Isles and Valenwood also fits their broader pattern, and as does what little we know of their activities in elsewhere. But the murder of a prince, I've tried many ways of looking at that, and it doesn't make any sense. Vel started to retort to that, but the Emperor shook his head and held up his hand. Then he spoke again to Colin. What is your opinion? If my son is not dead, do you believe him kidnapped? And if so, by whom or for what purpose? And why leave this trail that seems to lead to the Thalmor? Colin took another deep breath and began to lie. If we assume that much of the evidence left for us was false, he began, then I might suggest it's someone interested in drawing our attention to the Thalmor. A distraction to keep our eyes turned, perhaps even coax us into a fight. Leowyn? The Emperor muttered. Oh my god. They are still restless under our rule. Maybe it's not someone restless under your rule, Majesty. Maybe it's someone who would prefer someone else inherit the throne. My brother? He massaged his head. It's not impossible. I do not like to think it. Sire, Vel said, your brother did not hatch this plot. He is more adequately surveilled. He is perhaps more clever than you think, Meade replied. But lay that aside. If we find my son, we find our enemy. So I want him found. He frowned and stroked his upper lip. Captain Gulan was among the dead? He was, Vel replied. Is there any question regarding his identity? No, sire, Vel said. He was killed by arrow shot and his head was not taken. Sire, I know it isn't easy to accept, but we must consider the possibility that the body we have is that of the prince. The inspector's opinion notwithstanding, it is the right size and shape. My son had a birthmark on his right side, just where the ribs ends. I have seen the corpse. That portion of it is charred, while others are not. Like the inspector, I find that too convenient, and it does not feel like Atribus, so I believe him alive. Someone has him. I want him found. Inspector, is there any indication of where the attackers went? Well, they broke into smaller parties, and left in different directions. But I would look south for Atribus, Your Highness. And why is that, Inspector? Because it is the only direction in which there were no tracks whatsoever, sire. The Emperor grunted and nodded. Inspector, Intendant, Administrator, he said, addressing the three, and left. Vel waited a moment and followed him, shooting Colin an unpleasant look. That wasn't the brightest thing you could have done, Moral said. The Emperor asked my opinion, Colin said. Isn't it my duty to give it? Moral sighed. The Emperor doesn't care if you get assigned to sewer cases for the rest of your life, or worse, sent to spy on lords. It's better if these things go up the chain of command. Now, Vel appears to be less well informed than his most junior inspector. I fully intend to follow that chain, Colin said. I came here believing Administrator Vel was going to hear my report. It isn't my fault that the Emperor was present. Morale nodded. You're right, of course. It's just your inexperience showing. You shouldn't have so bluntly disagreed with a superior. There are more subtle ways to go about things. How subtle is a knife? Colin angrily thought, but then pushed that away. I'm still learning, sir. If Atribus is alive and they find him on your council, you will gain the Emperor's favor, and that will be a good thing for you. But if they do not find him, or if that body is him, then the Emperor will not think of you again. I advise you to keep as quiet as possible now, and find some ways to come to Vel's attention in a more positive way. In that case, Collins said, I wonder if I could be reassigned. Oh, I can guarantee that, the attendant said. Vel will put you under a rock. The only question is for how long. Goodness, my voice is going hoarse. Oh my god. Help, we've only just started reading. This is really bad. Oh well. Maybe I should ask Koopsie to make a tea or something. Right, let's continue, even though my voice is going away. When he emerged from the palace, night had fallen and the sky blazed down upon the imperial city. He was tired, but he wanted a walk and a pint. He needed to think. He was missing something. He had an idea what it might be, and that went well with the stroll and the ale. In Anvil, where he was born, darkness brought quiet to the city. People went home or to pubs and taverns, but the streets were pretty empty. Not so here, at least not in the market district, which was his destination. The streets were crowded with trinket vendors and soothsayers, self-styled prophets of any daedra or divine imaginable. Women, mostly comely ones, stood outside of alehouses, flirting to attract business, and there were others of both genders and all races, flirting to sell somewhat different wares. Beggars choked the edges of walkways, and little stalls were turning out the enticing smell of roasted oysters, fried cheese, bread, skewered meats, and burnt sugar cane. People wandered in crowds, as if afraid the city would swallow them up if they found themselves alone for long. The crown's hammer was off the main thoroughfare, around the corner and almost hidden in an alley. It was a half-timbered building, very old. He pushed his way in the front door. The barkeep was a withered old fellow who favored Colin with a nod. You're having? He asked, as he cleaned a mug with a rag that looked slightly dirtier than the container it was wiping out. Aye, Colin said. The man nodded, held the glass under the tap of a wooden keg, and filled it with rich, dark red liquid. Colin paid for the drink, and then found a table in a corner. He took a seat where he could see the door, and sipped at the ale. It was strong, sweet, and had just a taste of juniper. a Colovian Highland style now popular throughout western Cyrodiil, but hard to find here in the east. The place was nearly empty when he came in, but it was starting to fill up now, because the patrol and the soldiers were changing shifts. The hammer catered to Colovians, and Colovians in this part of the world were mostly military. So he wasn't surprised when Niall Sexius walked in, noticed him, and grinned. "Colin, lad," he said, "it's been an age." "It's good to see you, Niall," he replied. "I was hoping you would be in tonight. Have a seat. Let me buy you a drink." "Well, fine, if I can have the next round." When they were both looking for over foam, Niall cracked his knuckles and settled his elbows on the table. He was a big man, thick in every dimension, with a ruddy, wind-worn complexion that made him look older, although he and Colin were of an age. "Where have you been?" he asked. "It's almost 2 years. I thought you'd left town." "No, just very busy," Colin said. Niall wagged a finger at him. "Come to think of it, you were a little thin on why you're all the way over here last time we talked. Distracted me with that story about your sister." "Yeah," Colin said, taking a drink. I work in the palace." Niall's eyes widened. "And don't I too?" he asked. "So why haven't I seen a trace of you?" "I'm in a different part of the palace, I guess. In the tower." "Doing what? Making ladies' dresses?" "Studying," he said. "In school, as it were." "In school? But that—" He stopped, rolled his eyes, and took a drink. Then he lowered his voice. "Ah, Colin, you're one of them. You're a spectre, aren't you?" "I serve the Empire, same as you," Colin said. "Not the same as me," Niall disagreed. "Col, why?" "They offered me a way up, Niall. A way so my mom doesn't have to work herself to death. I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense to you." "Now don't get your back up, Scruff," Niall said. "I'm just surprised, is all. I don't fancy most of your fellows, but I'll make an exception for you." "I don't fancy some of my fellows," Colin said, "but I don't fancy being judged either. If the Emperor didn't think we mattered, oh my god, if the Emperor didn't think we mattered, we wouldn't exist." "Fine, like I said," Niall said. His voice dropped even lower. "So see here," he said. "Maybe you'd know then, is all this true about Prince Atribus?" "I don't know what you've heard." "Heard he finally got himself and all of his guard murdered." "It looks like that," Colin said. "Did you know any of them?" "Yeah, a few. I thought about applying a few years back, but I didn't think I could handle it, you know." "The danger, you mean?" Niall grunted out a laugh. "That's funny," he said. "What do you mean?" "You mean you're a spectre, and you don't know about the prince?" Not my field of expertise," Colin said. "Well, he was just for show, you know, only he didn't know it." Colin nodded. That fit with the picture forming in his head. So why hadn't he been briefed about that before being sent to fetch the prince back? "Well, he walked into a bit of danger this time," Colin said. "Yeah. I wonder how. I mean, he must have been watched, if what you say is true." Niall thumbed his glass on the table. "You're prying me, aren't you? Inspecting." Colin sighed. "It's this, Niall," he said. "I'm new to all of this. I think there's something strange going on, and I'm not sure who to trust, except you. I believe I can trust you." Niall stared at him for several long moments, then took his mug back up. "What then?" "The Emperor asked about a man named Gulan, specifically. He wanted to know if his body was found." "Was it?" "Yeah." Niall nodded. "Gulan was Atribus's right hand. He kept him out of trouble." Whenever the prince would try and go be a hero in the wrong place, Gulan would bring it to the attention of the emperor, and something would happen to stop it. Well, he didn't this time, it seems. He didn't report it directly to the emperor, did he? No, he'd go through the prime minister's office. Colin nodded. Now he was sure about what he was missing. Thanks, Niall, he said. You look tired, boy, Niall said. Are you all right? I'm fine. I have some trouble sleeping, that's all. You used to sleep so sound, thunder wouldn't wake you, Niall said. Things change, Colin said. He studied He studied the table for a moment before looking up at his friend. Look, try to forget we had this conversation. Don't ask any questions. Just leave it be. I might be able to help, Niall said. You've helped me more than enough. Now, come on. Let's talk about something else. Yeah, like what? Like what a slut your sister is, for example. If it weren't true, I thank you for that. Maybe I should thwack you. I don't know what that is. Thwack you anyway. Let's have another round while I think it over. That's good for me, Colin replied. He finished the ale and watched Niall walk off to fetch two more. There wasn't anything to do tonight, and it felt good to talk to a friend. It had been a long time since he'd done that, and it might be the last. Oh, Chapter 8. Where is everyone? I don't really know. It is very quiet today. Like, unusually quiet. But I feel like usually it is quieter when I do readings because I don't think everyone likes it. So that makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely quieter than usual. But it's whatever, nothing I can really do about that. And I think there was a notification in the Discord and stuff, so yes. Strange. Oh well. All we can do is stream. All we can do is read, stream it, and hope for the best. Yes. Well, I hope everyone's doing well. We are currently in page 172 out of 298. So it's really not that much left. I do feel like I am very happy that I've been reading way more ever since we got the book club. It's really inspired me to read more. Yesterday I finished the second Aragon book. It was actually really good. I've been like flying through it. Like in the first book, it was like, ooh, I had to get into it and stuff. But like around 200 pages into the second one, I was really getting into it. It was getting intense. There was like lots of just progress of the characters, and then a whole war and everything, and it was just, yeah, really good. And now I bought the third one because I've read everything else on my ebook. So I'm always very iffy about buying books because I'm very scared to like own too many books. I don't like owning too many things. It's just a bit like a lot of clutter, and I don't want that. But the books are too good, and I want to own at least one. It's like around 800 pages, so the book is like massive. But that's okay. But yes, let's continue. We've got chapter 8 of part 2. Yes. Queen glared down at the trays and the food they contained. Explain, she snapped. Start with the fish. An egg calls it catfish, Slur said. The taskers bring us quite a lot of them. I'm aware of that, Queen said. We've burned hundreds for the Aurora mansion workers. What I want to know is why are you sending a complete fish to Lord Gull? It's far too coarse for his palate. Why question us? An egg wondered. Except for that first time, we've done nothing but succeed. Can't you just trust us? She could not, of course, say that out loud. That's true, chef, she said instead. He will be surprised by it, I believe. Not pleasantly, I should imagine by looking at it. Ah, yes, but when he touches or breathes on it, it will deliquesce. It will deliquesce? I don't know what that means, but okay. That will release a series of odors viandic. The fish will liquefy and mingle with the void and fire salts there around the fish, which will then release their essences. That will lead nicely into the second course here, a cold broth of tadpole bones garnished with live frog eggs. Ew. Finally, the white froth of terrace wort will cause his palate to vividly recall each aroma and taste, but in reverse order. Another of your oh my god. Another of your jigs? Yes, chef. These are tricks. Stunts, Queen complained. You're hazard boring him. I think you will be pleased, Slur said. But if you have any questions, I would be most happy to hear them, chef. Queen narrowed her eyes, clearly trying to decide if she should feel insulted. An egg had to stop herself from holding her breath. The moment passed, ending with Queen simply walking off. That's it then, Slur said. Let's send it up. The news from above was good that evening. She and Sleer hadn't been back to the little room with its view of the night sky in days, but that night they celebrated there again. Sleer brought baubles as well as food this time, little coils of glass that glowed like small suns. And after Sleer was asleep, Anaig felt her amulet awake. Thank the Bella, she murmured. Good evening, Noah. I'm just stopping by to say hello since I have to go to work soon. That's okay. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, Puma. Have a good day at work, okay? You got this. Hooray, I'm here. Hello. I hope your visit with your mom is going well. I hope she's doing okay. Where was I? Thank the Bella, she murmured. She lifted a coil, rose, and tiptoed out of the room into the cellar, and only then did she open the locket. And there was Prince Atribus, looking back at her. The light seemed to be firelight, for shadows flickered about him, but his face was bruised and battered. His eyes were full of concern, and now his features relaxed in relief. There you are, he said. I was worried about you. And I about you, Your Highness. It's been days I've tried to contact you. He nodded. I've been unable to respond, he said. He trailed off. He seemed different. Not the assertive, confident man she remembered from their earlier conversation. I understand, Prince Atribus, she said. You're a busy man. He nodded. I want you to know, he said, that I am coming, as I promised, but it may be that... Again he didn't finish. He seemed very vulnerable. But then something seemed to strengthen him, and his tone became firmer, more familiar. Have you discovered anything new? Yes. I found a place where I can see the sky, a way in and out. I'm trying to recreate the tonic that Glim and I used to reach this place. That's good, he said. Perhaps I can find something like that on my way there. We should pass through Riemann in a few days and then Leeuwin. That sounded a little odd. as if he didn't have his mages with him, but maybe he preferred to handle certain things himself. I've always wanted to see Raymond, she told him. They say that Akaviri built a magnificent shrine there, the Thone Naka. They say it houses 10,000 statues, and the canals are said to be amazing. Well, I've never been there either, Atribus said, but I'll tell you about it next time we speak. That would be wonderful, Prince. I shan't be dawdling there, though, he went on. Time is of the essence, but I'm sure I'll see something worth mentioning. He paused. I find titles cumbersome in conversation. I would prefer you did not use them. What should I call you then, Your Highness? Atribus will do, or Treb. It will save time when we talk. I'll try, she said. It seems strange to be so familiar with you. Try it, for my sake. There was that troubled look again. Are you well, Atribus? Is something wrong? There have been some setbacks here, he said. I won't bore you with the details. It wouldn't be boring, she said. Well, then I'd rather not talk about it, he modified. She realized then that his eyes were glistening a bit. I must go now, he said. Keep yourself safe, above all. Will you do that? I will, she said. He nodded, and then his image vanished behind Ku's door. She stood there for a moment, a bit breathless, then snuck back into the shaft room. Sleer didn't look as if she had stirred. Nag sat with her back against the wall. Something was wrong with the prince. That didn't bode well, did it? But at the moment there wasn't much she could do but continue to stay alive, try to get in touch with Glim, rediscover the secret of flying. Actually, that was quite a lot, wasn't it? Her hands were full, so she needed her rest. No use to worry about things that were at the moment beyond her. But she hoped Atribus. He'd asked her to call him Atribus. She hoped he was all right. Yeah. Yes. Atribus closed the little door on the bird. This was the first time he'd seen her face. Her green eyes and generous, sensual lips. Oh my god. He's already into her and he's just seen her. A nose that some might consider a bit large, but belonged perfectly on her face. Hair like dark twists of black silk. The face of the woman he'd failed. Well, she at least is alive, he told Sol, who sat on the other side of the small fire they'd built. So I gather, Sol said. Interesting, that bird. The Dwemer used to make similar toys before the world swallowed them up. Do you know where it's from? She said it's from her mother. And I gathered her mother was middling nobility from High Rock? Well, things move around, Sol grunted. Let me see it. See here, Atribus began, but the look in the Dunmer's eyes stopped him. He stood and extended Ku. Sol took her, examined her a bit. The little door wouldn't unclasp for him. Smart, Cole said. Only opens for who it was sent to. I believe so, Atribus replied. Radhasa couldn't make it work. Why didn't you tell her? Sol asked, prodding the fire, snapping a swarm of sparks towards the sky. This Nag, why didn't you tell her you've lost all of your guard? I didn't want to discourage her. You'd rather give her false hope? I don't intend to give up. That's good, Sol said. It's better that way. As opposed to what? Sol didn't answer right away, but instead drew his sword and examined the edge a bit before resheathing it. Finally, he looked up at Atribus. Here's my worry, Sol said. I'll make it plain right away, so it's not between us from here on out. Let's start with this. I'm going to find Umbriel. When I do, there's going to be slaughter. Pure and simple. I'm going to bring it down. It's been suggested to me that you help me. that you can help me, and that's why I followed you. That's why I killed your captors. But I saw your fight with the Red Guard. I was waiting to be sure of where the others were before I made my move, and it was clear she had no intention of killing you. I heard the conversation. She was lying, Atribus said. She wasn't, Sol replied. You're telling yourself that now because you're too weak to face it. But like she said, she's not fundamentally stupid. The branch already has too much weight on it. It's starting to crack. You barely managed to get through your talk with the Breton girl without getting weepy. My friends have just been killed, Atribus heard himself shout. Friends, lovers, companions, all dead. Of course I'm not myself. Wait, sorry, I'm just gonna check whether my mic is facing the right way. Sorry. Some VODs I like notice that I'm suddenly really quiet. I'm like, why is that? So I just want to check that it's definitely right. Let's continue. Especially for a reading stream where it's actually important you can hear me. I also think I should make myself larger, perhaps. Yes. Do, 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 do. Right, let's continue. Sol waited for him to finish, then started again. In days or weeks, that branch will crack, and now you'll come. You'll realize how right she was, and the world will turn over. And my worry is, will you be any use to me then? Will any of these principles you think you adhere to, honor, courage, honesty, survive it? Or are you just a child playing at these things as you played at being a warrior and commander? You're wrong about this, Atribus snapped. Based on one conversation you overheard, you conclude she was right? Granted, she could outfight me. A child with palsy could outfight you. I'd been wounded, tied to a horse for days. This isn't an argument, Prince Atribus. Look, I'll swear it even now. I will stop Umbriel, or I will die trying. You're not listening to me, Sol said. I'm trying to help you. By telling me that everything I believe about myself is a lie? Sol's eyes were fragments of the fire, lifting up to burn him. And yet, when he spoke, it wasn't to Atribus, and it wasn't in Tamrielic. The only part of it the prince caught was the name Azura, one of the Daedric princes. Then the Dunmer sighed harshly. Everyone faces that, you spoiled child. Most simply turn away and continue with their delusions. Only a few are forced to accept the truth. Not everyone, not like this, Atribus said. I'm a prince. I'm supposed to be emperor one day. If what Radhasa said is true, I've been mocked my whole life without ever knowing it. Your whole life is a heartbeat, Sol said. Maybe to you, but if people have been laughing at me, enough, Sol snarled. Enough. I've done far more for you than I should. I've tried to warn you, but instead, I'm just going to have to wait and see what the baby does. How's this then? With or without you, I'll do what I've set out to do. If it comes to it, I'll cut off your head and revive it now and then to talk to the bird. Would that be a fair price for you breaking that vow that you pledged so earnestly just now? Atribus couldn't meet those eyes anymore, and turned instead to the living heart of the fire, which was certainly cooler. Yes, he mumbled. But now he was afraid. What did this man really want? What did Sol really need from him? Was it even true they had the same goal? But then he suddenly understood that didn't matter. Every single thing Saul had told him could be true, but that still wouldn't put Saul on the right side of things. Maybe he was planning something even worse than whatever the master of Umbriel was up to. In the end, they might be enemies. That would certainly explain this attempt to undermine him even more than Radhasa had. Maybe he and Radhasa had been working together and then had a falling out. Maybe Saul was the man she had been planning to sell him to. And this was all a part of some elaborate game of his, breaking the will of a prince, reducing him to believing he was nothing. He felt like screaming. He wanted to be alone, to think, to be free of fear long enough to sort through the confusion. He had a horse now. But then again, running might be exactly what Saul wanted. Sure, he could keep his vow and go after Aneg and Umbriel himself, but Saul would be at his back the whole time. Hadn't his father always said it was better to have your enemies where you could see them? For now, that was probably his only choice. He had to keep his wits about him, think for himself, and not let Saul toy with him. He would work with the Dunmer as long as their goals appeared to be the same, and be ready the moment they weren't. He was a Mede, after all, a Mede. Aneg thought that the first explosion was a vat shattering. It had happened before, especially at the Oroi station, but the second was much louder, while sounding somehow further away. And then the screaming began. Some of it sounded like warlike howls, some like shrieks of terror and pain, but everything in Umbriel was still frightfully strange, and none of it gave her any purchase on what was happening. Luke hopped down from the shelves and crouched behind her. For her part, Aneg climbed up onto the table to get a better view, but the waving air above the fire pits obscured the far end of the kitchens. Still, the scamps were all swarming in that direction, leaping through the wires, grills, and racks above the pits. Beyond, a black curtain of flame and smoke occluded what the shimmering air did not. Only in the central aisle could she see anyone, and there, the cooks and their helpers were black silhouettes, crowded shoulder to shoulder. "You!" Queen snapped from off to her left. "What are you standing about for? What's happening?" Sleer was with her, and the rest of the staff from Gold Station, along with a motley collection of the largest and most dangerous-looking cooks in the kitchen, including Dest, a hulking ogre-like fellow with black and yellow fur. They were all armed to the teeth with butchering knives and cleaves. "Don't ask stupid questions," Queen snapped. "Come now." They closed around her, moving at a trot through the huge boilers, parsers, and stills, the pulsing soul cable, and into territory. Aneg had never seen high-chambered rooms filled with long, watery trenches in which she caught glimpses of serpentine movement. As they went along, chefs darted out and made adjustments to the equipment until at last they came to a stair leading up. "All of it, now," Queen said. "But they're coming," Sleer protested. "Look, you can see them." She pointed back the way they had come, and Aneg made out, darting in, and amidst the strange machinery, a handful of chefs, cooks, and tenders. "They let them live in hopes we would delay," Queen said. "We won't. Do it. Send your hob." "Yes, chef." They continued up the stairs, but a few moments later, a vast rumble began. Aneg found herself pushed up against Lear. "What's happening?" she asked. "Queen's purging the kitchens," she said. "Purging them?" "We're invaded," Aneg. "Invaded?" She had a surge of sudden wild hope. "By another kitchen. It hasn't happened in years." They had reached the top of the stairs now, and emerged through a massive iron valve into a cavernous room. Death closed and sealed it. Then the chefs began laying various odd-looking packages about in front of it. Sleer was still hustling her back toward the far end of the cavern. "What now?" Anaig asked. "We wait. The kitchens are full of fire and 30 kinds of toxins. If anyone survives that, we'll fight them here." I don't understand. Why would another kitchen invade? Slayer blinked and looked at her as if she was stupid. "To get you," she said. How do you know that?" "From what I saw, it has to be one of the upper kitchens, the ones that serve the greater lords. They could have attacked as we defended, with venomous gases. Instead, they send cooks. That tells me they want someone alive, and that must be you." "So everyone you left down there, not just dead, dissolved," Slayer replied. Then, but a hollow boom filled the chamber, and another, and the silence settled. "Be ready," Queen said. They were prepared. "Ah, slum slurry," Slayer moaned. "How could anything survive all that?" "That's a rhetorical question, I take it," Anaig said, trying hard not to shake. The door glowed white-hot for an instant, then turned into a drifting vapor. "Ready," Queen repeated. For a few heartbeats, nothing happened. Then a monster leapt through the door. Anaig's first impression was a bull-sized lion with 1,000 eyes set on squirming stalks. She had no second impression, for the packages Queen's people had scattered in front of the door suddenly revealed their natures and became variously fire, force, cold, and vitriol. The monster, whatever it was disintegrated. But behind it, through the newly formed fog, poured hordes of cooks. In appearance, they were the same mixture of physical types that Anaig was becoming used to in the kitchen. They were gold and black. Queen screamed like some sort of bird of prey and ran at the attackers, her staff behind her. In only seconds, they were enveloped, and although Slayer kept trying to push Anaig back, after a moment, the fighting was all around her. Blood spurted up her chest, and fast as a cleaver chopped someone's arm off. She slipped and fell, blinded by the blood in her eyes. When she managed to wipe it out, she saw Min staggering by, clutching her bleeding gut, her face dissolving into yellow worms. Ew! She tried to scream, and might have, but if so, her voice was lost in the din. All of a sudden, Queen was there, pulling her up from another fall. One of her ears was missing, and much of her left arm had turned a strange gray color. Queen pulled her close. "He won't have you," he shouted in Anaig's ear. Then she pulled back, and Anaig saw her arm come up, and as blood sprayed from nearby, she saw it outline a long, wickedly curved nothing protruding from the chef's finger. She started at it, unable to move, knowing what came next. But then Sleer buried her cleaver in Queen's neck, and the chef's eyes fluttered. Anaig felt something tug at her neck and thought her throat had been cut before realizing the invisible blade had sliced through her locker chain. Slayer hacked again, and the Queen staggered back, swiping her hand at Slayer. But the slate-skinned woman, trying to step back, slipped over a body. Then Queen toppled, knocking Anaig over yet once again. They landed face to face. Quinn still wasn't dead. She was trying to get her hand back up. Anaig grabbed her wrist. The blade was invisible again, But Anaig felt something at her forehead, and a lock of hair fell past her nose. She shrieked and pushed the hand back. For a long moment, Queen resisted, but then the spurting from her neck slowed to a trickle and her eyes went dull. Anaig lay there, panting, oblivious to the chaos still reigning around her. She kept hold of the hand and saw, inside the sleeve, a sort of tightness on Queen's arm, as if it were restricted by an unseen band. She tugged at it, but couldn't find any sort of catch, buckle, or tie. She was just in the process of carefully laying the arm aside when something brushed her wrist, and then, to her horror, kinched around it. Reflectively, she grabbed at it with her other hand, but all she could feel was a sort of gummy torus encircling her wrist. There was no blade. She realized that it was almost silent now. She began to turn, but someone grabbed her up by the back of her jacket, and a moment later she was standing unsteadily on her feet again. Corpses were sprawled all around her. Sleer was a few feet away, held by two unfamiliar men. Everyone else she knew from the kitchen was dead. From the press of black and gold before her, a man emerged. He might have been a Breton, with his high, delicate cheekbones and sensuous lips. He put a finger to his chin, and she saw it was long, slim, manicured. He wore the clothing of a chef, but it was as black as his hair. He turned sky blue eyes first on Sleer, then on Anaig. "So," he murmured in a silky voice, "you two are responsible for Lord Gull's last several meals?" Sleer lifted her chin. "We are," she said. "Very well then, you have nothing to fear. I am Chef Tuel. You belong to me now." He touched his finger to her lips, and everything faded to black. But anyway, chapter 9. "Something's moving up there," Atribus said. Sol nodded. "I know," he replied. "Of course you do," Atribus thought sullenly. Earlier that day, the short grass prairie had abruptly dropped off into one of the strangest landscapes Atribus had ever seen. It looked as if a massive flood had stripped everything away but the dirt, and then cut that up into a labyrinth of arroyos and gullies. It was beautiful in a way, because the vibrant rust, umber, olive, and yellow strata of the soil were exposed, like one of those 30-layer cakes that Shaden Hall was famous for. I don't know what that looks like. I wonder if they sell it there. From above, it was fine to look on, but once in the maze, Atribus felt mostly claustrophobic, and now someone or something was stalking them, up on those crumbly ridges. What if they attack us? If they wanted to do that, we'd already have arrows in us. Sol grated. "They'll let us know what they want soon enough." That didn't make Atribus feel any more comfortable. Not that he'd been at ease before. Not just because of the terrain, but because he found himself obsessively combing back through the events of his life. It wasn't that he fully believed Rothassa and Sol, but he conceded that there might be some element of truth to their rantings, an element they were exaggerating. Sol, annoyingly enough, proved correct about those spying on them. The trail they were following bottled tighter until it was only a few yards wide, and as they turned a corner, they found themselves facing 4 Khajiit. Atribus had known many Khajiit, of course, Some of his guard had been of the cat people, and they were common enough in the empire, but he had never seen any quite like this. What struck his eye first were their mounts, monstrous cats that stood as high as a large horse at the shoulder. Their forelimbs were as thick as columns and half again as long as their rears, giving them an ape-like appearance. Their coats were tawny, ribboned with stripes the color of dried blood, and their feral yellow eyes seemed to promise evisceration, and that was only to start with. Two of the riders seemed hardly less bestial, although they wore shirts that covered their torsos and cravats around their necks. Where their fur was visible, it was pale yellowish, green spotted with black. Their faces were altogether more cat-like than any Khajiit he'd ever met, and they slouched forward on their mounts. The third rider was more like what Atrebus was used to, with features that were more manlike, although still unmistakably feline. And the final rider had such fine, delicate features she might easily have been of marish blood, had her face not been splotched with irregular black rings. "Well there," the woman said in a beautiful, lifting voice. "Who do we have here traveling on our road?" Atrebus cleared his throat, but Sol spoke quickly. No one of consequence," he said. "Just two wayfarers going east." Atrebus realized that out of sheer habit, he'd been about to tell them exactly who he was. Sol had known that too, hadn't he? Anyway, let's continue. Ahem. "East, you say?" the woman said. "East is good. The moons come from there. We're in favor of east. We're going there, but east for you, not so good, I think. East is not so friendly to men and myrrh, except, in Rimmon. But how could you get there? And on our road?" Atrebus heard a shuffle behind him, and a glance showed him what he should have known. There were two more riders behind him. "We've no need to go to Rimmon," Sol replied. "Rude," the woman said. "Where are my manners? Would you ride with us? Accept our protection?" "We would be honored," Sol replied. "Now wait a minute," Atrebus began. "The whelp is speaking out of turn," Sol cut in. "We would be honored. I had no idea the East was so fretful, and of course we offer Yemath in return for your kindness." "Ah," the woman said. "You also have manners, Outlander. Very well. Travel with my brothers and cousins and me. We are happy to share what we have." And with that, they turned their mounts and rode east. The trail soon debouched into a broad wash, a stream only inches deep, but several yards across. Olive, tamarisk, and palm traced its outline, and beyond it 3 large tents had been pitched. The air buzzed with metallic-looking dragonflies. "They've been waiting here," Atrebus thought, "for us, or someone like us." To him, that didn't bode well, but Sol seemed pretty relaxed about the whole situation. Did he imagine he could kill all of the Khajiit if it came down to it? It seemed possible. He remembered Sol's philosophy about fighting. Maybe he was just biding his time. "Come," the woman said. "Let's have cake." "Yes, cake!" The tents were set up facing a small circle of stones, within which ashes faintly smoked. They were ushered to sit, and when they complied, all of the Khajiit that accompanied them joined them. Even the tiger-like mounts folded themselves down next to their riders. From the tents, Atrebus heard excited mewing and talking, and several very small kittenish faces poked out of one of the flaps and were just as quickly drawn back in. After a moment, what seemed to Atropos to be a very old female came out, bearing a tray of small round cakes, a bowl, and a narrow-necked bottle of rose-colored glass. She knelt in front of Sol, placed a small cloth on the ground, then a cake on the cloth. With a precise movement of her hand, she pinched some sort of powder from a small bowl in the tray and sprinkled it on the cake. Then she took the bottle and let exactly 4 drops of golden liquid drip on it. She moved to him, and then each of the Khajiit in turn, repeating the ritual gesture for gesture. "Now we'll tell our names," the marish-looking woman said. This near, she seemed even more beautiful and exotic than she had at a distance, and he noticed, with a bit of surprise, that the marks on her face were tattoos, rather than natural. Maybe she wasn't a cat after all. "I am Lespa," she said. "Our clan is Fa'ashi." She motioned with her knuckles towards the Khajiit to her left. "She is Makai, my sister. There is Taj, my maternal cousin. There is Shajal, my brother." Atropos blinked. She seemed to be indicating one of the mounts. He remembered something now, from his lessons as a boy. Or was it the story his nurse had told him about the 4 Khajiit and the riding kite? He didn't know anything about these people at all, did he? She finished naming everyone. Then he and Sol gave their names. He called himself simply Treb, and they all lifted the cakes. Had annoying. But yes, I know you guys don't really want to know about that, but there you go. That's why we are doing this. Yes. But yes, let's continue. He called himself simply Treb, and they all lifted the cakes. "Touch it to your mouth, but do not eat," Sol said as Atropos opened his mouth. That will satisfy the spirit of the ceremony. Khajiit food can be dangerous for us. Oh, okay. Why? Lespa nodded knowingly, but did not add anything. So Atropos watched the Khajiit first lick and then devour the sweets, while his belly growled. "Oh my god, is there like moon sugar in it? Is that why?" After that, the rest of the camp turned out another 8 adults and about 12 children of various ages. They quickened the fire and set about making a stew of some sort. "Can I eat that?" he asked Sol. "If you want. I'm pretty sure it's honey and date soup." The cakes had moon sugar in them. It's a drug, the same stuff they make skooma of. "They don't seem to be feeling any ill effects," Atropos said. "Because they're a Khajiit. They eat the stuff every day, in one form or the other. But they're more naturally tolerant of it. Built different from you. Doesn't help with skooma, though. There are plenty of Khajiit addicts. Yes, we know." "Lespa doesn't look like she's all that different from us." Sol snorted. "Some used to think that the Khajiit were another variety of myrrh, but it's the moons, the phases they're in when the kids are born that determines how they turn out. So the mount? That really is her brother? They had the same parents?" "Yes, but I'd stay away from that subject if I were you. It's too easy to say the wrong thing." Atropos nodded, feeling stupid. Sol seemed to know everything, and he was starting to feel as if he knew very little, because he went someplace he hadn't been. He had always received a briefing about it. That had always been enough. It hadn't occurred to him to learn much about any place he had no business with. It made him wonder what important things he didn't know about Blackmarsh. But what really nagged him was that he had known Khajiit, been practically brothers with them, and yet he hadn't been aware of the most fundamental facts of their existence. He tried to remember conversations he might have had with the cats in his guard, and realized he couldn't remember any that went on for more than a few sentences. So maybe they hadn't been his friends. Maybe he really hadn't known most of his guard that well, which led him back to the festering question. Was Saul right about everything? This depressing train of thought was interrupted by Lesba returning her attention to them. She folded lithely down into a squat that looked as if it ought to hurt but clearly didn't. Now, she said, we discuss Yemath. Very well, Sol replied. How can we help you? Moon sugar is scarce here, but plentiful in Rimmon. But then the new potentate there forbids our clans inside the walls and will not sell us sugar. You're not Khajiit. You go into Rimmon, get the sugar. Why won't he sell you sugar? Doesn't like the free clans. He's outlawed us on our own land. Khajiit that work in the walls have all they want, but we won't live like that. Yes, we won't. That sounds reasonable, Sol said, but our path takes us beyond Rimmon to the border. Ours turns back from there. Sol nodded thoughtfully. Very well. Wait a minute, Atropos said. No, Sol said. You don't understand this. I'm starting to. You promise not to kill us if we help you get moon sugar? We protect you, Lespa said. Yes, you protect us from you. You meet us first, Lespa said. That's good for you. There is no order in the north. Bandits, killers, prey even on weak Khajiit, and your kind is very unpopular on these plains. Miles to Rimmon, many more to the border. We help you survive, you help us. What if we say no, you kill us? No, we eat cake with you. Maybe kill you next time, but not now. Still, you'll die soon enough, even without us. Atribus looked at Sol. Is she right? Probably. The last time I was here, this was all still in the Empire and pacified. Things have changed. Pacified, Lesba said. Yes, not now. All is wild. The Main was assassinated, you know. There's war in the south. Here, just chaos and potentate. Look, Atribus said, trying to force a little gravity in his voice. What Sol and I are doing is very important. Something very, very bad is happening in Blackmarsh. Something that could destroy us all. We should be proud. You should be proud to help us. There would be much honor in that. We will help you, and you will give us Gemath. Then you will go find this bad thing, and we will go west. Agreed, Sol snapped before Atribus could say anything else. Anaik didn't reply that night, but he didn't let it concern him. Likely she was just asleep or busy. He went to sleep, still sour over the bargain Solon had made, and annoyed that Lespa naturally assumed the Dunmer was the leader. The next day, he had to grudgingly admit things might have worked out for the best. Twice before noon, they met other bands of Khajiit who plainly wanted to kill Sol and him. Oh god. Oh, that was a big sneeze. The first bunch offered to buy them, and the second one actually had to be backed down by a show of force. Bless you, thank you. They left the Badlands and entered a ragged steppe of thorn scrub. It lifted and rolled in long undulations. 2 days on that, and finally over a distant hill they could see a golden gleam. Rimmon, Lespa said. We dare go no nearer. That's still a long way, Sol said. What's between here and there? Rimmon's patrols, traders. Not so dangerous for you in there, but dangerous for us. She handed him a plain leather bag. Get a good deal. And so they left Lespa and her clan and continued on toward Rimmon. This is a waste of time, Atribus complained. We're going to lose a day. No, we aren't, Sol said. We're going to ride on to the border. We've no business in Rimmon. At first, Atribus wasn't sure he'd heard it right. But you took their oath. He protested when it sank in. Bound us to do it. We have their money, which I'm sure will be of use to us. But they kept their end of the bargain, Atrebus said. We can, Sol replied. I've broken much deeper oaths than this. I survived it. This is not only a waste of time, it's dangerous. We'll be breaking the law, supplying them with contraband. The law doesn't sound fair, Atrebus said. Fair? What do you even mean by that? No law is fair to anyone. Law is fair to everyone. A law against stealing is unfair to thieves. The thing to think about is whether you'll be able to save your precious Aneg if you're clapped in a dungeon or beheaded. And something burst in Atrebus. Prosit. What is prosit? Is that bless you in Swedish or something? What can I do anyway? He shouted. You say I'm not a tenth the man I think I am, right? So what are we going to do? The two of us against this thing, with me being so useless and all. To his horror, he heard his voice crack and realized he was starting to cry. Here we go, Sol said. What do you care anyway? I can't imagine you care if Umbriel kills everyone. That's right, I don't. Sol admitted. Yes, prosit is bless you in Swedish. Ah, I see. Thank you. But then why? Why are you bothering if you don't care? Sol glared at him. Atrebus suddenly saw something in those terrible eyes he hadn't seen before. Pain. I loved someone, Sol snarled. She was murdered. My homeland was destroyed. My people decimated and scattered to the winds. I lost everything. Those responsible for that must pay, and one of them is on Umbriel. Is that simple enough for you? His speech struck Atrebus dumb for a moment. Not so much the words as the tone, the sheer, tortured flatness of Sol's voice. I'm sorry, he finally said. Just ride, Sol snapped. But he couldn't let it go. You mean to say that you were there when the Red Mountain exploded? You know what happened? Sol didn't answer. It must be terrible. I can't imagine. Please, for the favor of Mafala, don't tell me what you can and can't imagine. Just do what I say. His tone was still odd, and Atrebus still didn't exactly trust the man, but he was starting to believe him, at least as far as Umbriel was concerned, and in other things. He took a deep breath. It's true, isn't it? What Rehasa said about me? Oh, thank the gods, Sol intoned. We're back to you again. Are you still worried about the shame, about everyone knowing but you? Wouldn't you be? But they don't, Sol said, his voice softening a bit. Most people in the world don't know you're a fraud. My mother, my father, most of the court, they all must have been sniggering behind my back. So what? More people believe in you than don't. They believe in a lie. You just said it. Then become the truth, you idiot. Become what they think you are. Atrebus let that sink in for a moment. You think that's possible? I don't know, but we can find out. You'll help me? I suppose I must, Sol sighed. Why? You said it yourself. It's just the two of us. We have to get to Morrowind, and we have to get there before Umbriel. Why? What's in Morrowind? How do you know Umbriel is going there? It is. Just trust me. And we'll never beat it on foot or horseback. I think I might know the way, but we'll need to make it to the Niben Valley first, and it would be helpful to have allies. The legendary Prince Atrebus ought to be able to drum up a few. Atrebus thought that over and found that it made some sense. Thank you, he finally said. Sol nodded reluctantly. But here's the thing, Atrebus continued. What now? Prince Atrebus wouldn't take Lisba's money and betray his oath. He'd get the moon sugar and bring it back to her. For a long moment, Sol didn't say anything. But then his shoulders seemed to relax slightly. Right, he said. Hi, Ghost. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. Riemann had elegant bones of ivory-colored stone with few towers but many domes. Soldiers, human soldiers, met them at the gate, searched them, questioned them, and eventually passed them through. For another 100 yards, they snaked through the twists and turns of an entry overlooked by platforms for archers, mages, and siege weapons. That brought them to the market, a bustling, colorful plaza, empty in the middle, but girdled by tents and stalls, and bounded by canals. A broad avenue, flanked by even more expansive waterways, continued on to what was clearly the palace, an ancient-looking structure raised up on a high-tiered stone substructure. The tiers held some buildings, and apparently earth, because he could see trees growing there. Surmounting there, that was a cylindrical building with a large golden dome. Water cascaded down the sides of the palace, feeding the pool that encircled it. Atrebus wondered where all the water came from. Off to the eastern side of the palace, he could see the odd curly-edged roof of what had to be the Akaviri temple Anaig had mentioned. The only place he'd ever seen with similar architecture was Cloud Ruler Temple, which he had viewed from a distance when he was 10, hunting with his father's traveling court. Goodness, sorry. With his father's traveling court in the mountains north of Bruma. He remembered that trip with fondness. He'd killed his first bear. Or maybe he hadn't, now that he thought of it. It had been moving a little strangely when he saw it, hadn't it? Had it already been wounded, poisoned, ensorcelled? Why would his father have done that? Why all of this? He pushed that down, trying to focus. He'd promised Anaig a description of Rimmon. He was surprised that fewer than half the people he saw were Khajiit, and many of those lolled about with wild and vacant eyes, skooma pipes clutched in their hands. It was a strange sight to see in an open public square. He began to understand Lisba and her people better. They left the plaza, crossing a canal on a footbridge, and thence down a narrow street where gently chiming bells were depended between the flat roofs of the building, and viridian moths flittered in the shadows. The addicts were even thicker here, a few watching them and holding out their hands for money, but most were shivering, lost in their visions. I just can't stop yawning all of a sudden. They arrived at their destination, a smaller square with a fortified building surrounded by guards in purple surcoats and red sashes. A sign proclaimed the place to be Kingdom of Riemann State Store. Once again they were searched, questioned, and then passed into a low-ceilinged room where 20 or so people stood on line at a counter. Only one person, an Altmer, seemed to be dealing with the customers, but others worked behind him, wrapping paper packages into even larger paper packages. "This was your idea," Sol pointed out. He handed him the bag of coins. "What do I do?" Atropos asked. "You've never stood on line, have you?" "No." "Well, embrace the experience. I'm going to sit down. When you get to the man at the counter, I'll come back." As bored as the man at the counter seemed from a distance, he seemed He somehow seemed even less enthusiastic when Atrebus and Sol reached him an hour later. He took the gold, looked it over, and then weighed it. "What do you want?" he asked. "Moon sugar." "40 pounds, then," he said. "60," Atrebus challenged. He bargained before, for fun. "There's no negotiation," the Mer said warily. Oh my god. "There's no negotiation," the Mer said warily. "Outlanders, look, the price is fixed by the office of the potentate. Take it or leave it, I really don't care." "We'll take it," Sol said. "It is my mandatory duty to warn that if you sell or attempt to sell moonsugar in the kingdom of Riemann, the man you said, you will be subject to a fine of triple the worth of the sugar. If you sell or attempt to sell more than 2 pounds, you will be subject to execution. Do you understand these terms?" "Yes," Sol said. Atrebus just nodded, feeling his face warm. "Very well. Your name here, please." He shoved a ledger at Atrebus. He hesitated, then signed in Uriel Tripitus. The rest was easy. They packed the stuff on their horses, rode out of Riemann, and headed west. They reached Lespa's camp near sundown. She was there, along with the others, crouched around the fire. She watched them come, her expression odd but unreadable. Her mouth moved, though, as if she was trying to say something. Sol stopped. "This isn't right," he said. "Something isn't right." "Dismount!" someone shouted. "This is Captain Infernal of the Kingdom of Riemann Regulators. Remove your weapons and make your beasts available for search." Beyond the fire, Atrebus could now make out figures, moving from cover. A lot of them. Uh-oh. Oopsie, oopsie, oopsie. They got caught. Tisk, tisk, kisk. Not moving drugs-free effectively. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Couldn't be me. I don't really know whether I want to read any further now, because I did, like, you know, because I did reach the next chapter, so it would be silly to, like, continue now, because it's a good place to stop, you know? It's better to start anew every time so I don't have to remember what was happening and stuff. Because basically we've done part 1 and part 2 now. We've completely finished that, so now it's part 3. I don't actually know how many parts there are, actually. You've moved a lot of drugs without getting caught then? Well, yes, I'm very experienced, actually, yes. Would never be me, I would never get caught. Oh. Is it over? It is over. My fireplace is gone. Let's actually see. Is this the last part? Or is there another part? Yeah, I think part 3 is the last part. The blurbs are silent. Shake my head. Again! Longer. Usually I end it around this time, but I started much later. But I kind of got to a point of the book that I wanted. So it was a bit faster than I expected. So this is why I feel like this is a good stopping point. But yeah, still, thank you so much for rating, and thank you so much for everyone for watching. Thank you for keeping me company today. Please have a good start of your week. I will see you again Wednesday. I will once again be posting the schedule soon, because I kind of want to think about maybe doing a longer stream at one point, because Koopsie won't be here next week, so I will be very lonely. So I'm counting on you guys to keep me entertained. But yeah, for now, have a good evening. I will see you very soon. Eat enough, sleep enough, all that, very important. If you don't, I will be in your walls. And yeah, take care of yourself. It's all good. I'm sorry to rating it, but I hope to catch you again. No problem. Thank you so much for rating, and good night, everyone. Take care. Bye bye, Mystery. Bye, Say. Bye, Senti. Bye bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.